generic one. Well, yeah, but it was just generic. It wasn't.
It does happen.
I knew exactly where they were. Why is your truck on blocks?
I was picking up oil change the
Is the
transfer,
link
stuff
with
like that, and the transmission, man, I said, can't anybody just change it? No, I said, well, give me a vehicle to drive for a few days, I don't care.
Yeah. All right.
I'll still be missing something.
We all good?
No, I'm not seeing
Hurry up. I'm already behind schedule.
Oh, you handed this out to everybody to carry over one.
that one went in the mail.
That one went in the mail, perfect.
Anyway, I'd like to call this meeting in order for exec finance at 8:31. Roll call. John Osmond.
Here.
Yes.
Richard Shisha. David Orsh.
Here.
David Larson.
Yes.
And Riley Foltz, all present and accounted for. Certified in the meeting, open meeting law requirements. Paul?
Yep.
All right,
We did that quite a long time ago.
good to go.
No amendment.
All right. Adoption.
Let's go approve the agenda.
Yep, adopting of the
Oh,
agenda.
we added
So-
that pace, I'm sorry, yes, we added the pace.
Second.
I got a second by Mr. Larson.
Oh, sorry.
That was just a
Voice of yes.
Yeah, it's a voice vote. Everyone, all of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. All right. Adoption of the minutes previous from last month. So moved by Mr. Sesha.
Second.
Second by Mr. Orsh. All those, any discussions on the meeting from last month? The minutes? None? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None? Motion carried. All right. Item 5. Public comment meeting. Members of the public will have 15-minute block time to comment on today's agenda items. Members of the public must be present at the beginning of the meeting, or comment period will be waived. Public comments period may be extended or critiqued by the chair or the advisement of the Exec Finance Committee. You can call in at 715-538-1770. Repeat the number, 715-538-1770. All right, there's no public. Wow. All right, item number 6, Wisconsin Property Assessed Clean Energy, PACE. Who is Holly?
Good morning. Hi, I'm on the call here.
Yes.
I appreciate the time this morning to talk about the PACE program. Me and my boss, Tim Matheson, who's also on the call, work for a nonprofit that's called Slipstream. And in that role, we support the administration of the PACE program through the Wisconsin PACE Commission. It's a financing program to help property owners, commercial property owners, make investment into their properties that will save them energy and save them energy costs, and also water conservation. There's 49 other counties in Wisconsin that participate. We've funded about 80 projects across the state since the program launched. And most recently, we were contacted by a large commercial property owner in your county who is interested in using PACE financing to make some significant improvements to their, I don't want to call it an industrial property, but a food processing facility. So we reached out to share the information about the PACE program and how it's operated with the other counties, and be glad to kind of walk through more of that if you want more of an overview of how the financing works, or Maybe Tim can talk a little bit about the commission structure or.
Yeah, let me get my camera on here. Good morning, everyone. So the PACE Commission is a joint powers authority made up of, like Holly said, 49 member counties. Every member is eligible to have a director on the board of directors of the PACE Commission, which is the governing body for PACE Wisconsin. We are the nonprofit administrator. So each, as administrator, we do intake and analysis of applications for potential projects. And if they meet our pre-approval process, at that point, we would work with the capital provider, the property owner, to get everything set to a point where it would be ready to go in front of the commission for approval. The commission meets once a month and jointly approves up or down the any of the projects that are on the agenda for that particular meeting, with the caveat that the home county where the project sits has a veto. So all 48 other existing counties could vote for a project approval, but if the home county doesn't vote to approve, that project cannot be approved. So there is this joint powers authority, but the home county still retains a level of control over what gets approved in that county. Happy to answer any other questions about the structure as well.
Yeah, I got a question. So in reading through some of the documentation that was sent out, can you confirm that there is a requirement for the county and somebody on the board of supervisors to be set on that commission?
That is not a requirement. Of the current 49 counties, about 42 have active representation on the PACE Commission board. So that is up to, that would be up to the county to determine if they had ongoing membership or not. And you can work with us as administrator to, either to seat somebody or not.
Okay, and another question then, in terms of the administration of the program through the county, I understand it goes through the tax rolls, and there is going to be a burden on the county to support the program through the taxing of the property and the lien on the property. Can you give more specifics as to how that works and what burden the county would have to bear?
Sure. So typically no burden on the county after the ordinance is passed, save if there is a director attending monthly board meetings. If there were a project that were to close in Trempealeau County, we as administrator would actually direct bill that property owner, coinciding the timing of the property bill, but it would be a separate bill tied to the tax pin that we would send, collect, and then send on to the capital provider for payment. So it's so we would service the financing as we do for all of the other closed projects in the state. The only time they would ever potentially come back to the county is if there were a non-payment or a foreclosure proceeding began, that the missed payment would have to go into the tax foreclosure process. But even at that point, the county can assign its rights to collect to the capital provider. So the county doesn't need to be involved really at all with the collection if it doesn't choose to be.
I'm just trying to understand a little bit more about why does the county even need to be involved then? Can you give us more of the details of the program, and why can't the business just go get a loan themselves, and why does the county even need to be involved?
Sure. So the PACE statute was passed many years ago and recently amended in the state legislature, passed unanimously in the House and the Assembly, in the Assembly and the Senate. the difference in pace between a regular loan, I suppose, is that it encourages property owners to invest in energy efficiency, renewable, and other cost savings measures into their property. And then if they choose to sell that property in a couple of years, those improvements and the financing run with the land, with the property. And so it's an improvement to the property. It improves the value of the land for the county, and the property owner doesn't necessarily have to bear the entire cost of that improvement if they choose to sell the property in a year or even 10 years. And these are long financings. They're in most cases 20 to 30 years. So it allows the property owner to invest in their property and amortize that investment over decades, or pass it on to a subsequent owner who can still net that value add to the property upon purchase. So that is seen as a public benefit, which is why the special charge mechanism for collection is allowed to be used per the statute if these are if one of these financings were to foreclose. Anything to add to that, Holly?
Yeah, so by having it tied to the tax collection process, even though the billing is separate, it's kind of tied to that process. That gives the property owner the ability to get fixed rate for 20 to 30 years. And the lenders to have the security that this is going to be, kind of backed or collected through the municipal process or backed up by a delinquency process, and that the role of the county and the involvement of the local government allows for that long-term financing. And so making these big capital improvements and financing them over the life of the equipment is often a benefit, because a traditional commercial loan won't be fixed rate for 20 years, won't be fixed rate for 25 years. So, that's one of the primary benefits to the property owner, is that they can access this like fixed rate long term. They'll know what their energy savings is every month, and they'll also know what their annual payment is on the special charge, on the PACE charge. So it lets them kind of finance and know what they're financing as far as savings and financing costs over the long term. And that's why we see, for 80 other property owners, it really was the right solution, because when you're talking about making these huge upgrades, whether it's replacing a whole HVAC system or a hot water system, or in this case, probably some industrial processes that are large purchases, being able to finance it at a fixed rate over the long term is definitely a benefit. And then, like Tim mentioned, the benefit to the community is, you're kind of reducing the energy burden from the community as a whole.
So the energy burden on the community, I'm not sure how that, I mean, if the business is going to be paying for the energy cost, how does the public benefit by that?
Well, do you want to answer that, Tim, or?
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, when you kind of look at the overall energy consumption by commercial buildings, including industrial and office and apartment buildings, things like that, those make up about 40% of the energy use in the United States. And so as we look at long-term security for access to energy, right, and as we build out the electrical infrastructure for EV cars, we need to kind of mitigate the demand a little bit. So if we can conserve in some places, then we'll have more access for other things in our community that will need energy. So that's kind of one of the aspects of community benefit.
I think, and the other aspect I was going to point to is that this is investment that's going in, directly into the property and increasing the value of the property, which will, in theory, increase the tax revenue on the property as well, if it's a more valuable property at the end of the day.
Yeah. It also, this employer that's interested in your community, I mean, the more financially secure they are as an operating budget, the better that is for everyone that works there, I think.
So just so I'm clear, if in the chance that the business goes bankrupt, goes under, the loan on that investment of the energy efficient whatever carries with the property, so it would actually make it more difficult for another owner or purchaser of that property in the future to buy that. Whereas without that type of a loan, that kind of goes away and goes back to the bank, and the bank is responsible for collecting however they deem through that business. So therefore, the burden then becomes part of the, the community and the county, to what are we gonna do with this property if nobody buys it? Would that be accurate?
We haven't seen that situation before. There's only been one, really of the 80 projects, there's only been one delinquency and it didn't go to foreclosure. There was a subsequent purchaser who ended up taking the property subject to the PACE financing and immediately paying it off. Because like I said, these buildings are going to be more expensive when they're, to purchase when they're finished, but they're also going to be hopefully more attractive to a subsequent purchaser because they've been updated and property is in good condition. The finance, but as you say, it could be a more expensive property, and it probably will be because the investment that's being made in it. So I think we haven't seen that as a negative in the sale, but you raise an important point.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I fully understood, the pros and the cons to the program for the community itself, and what the county would be signing up for, from a positive side in investment, and from a negative side of case economy goes to the point where people can't afford to do in business. Now nobody can buy the property, or you can't afford to buy the property because of the additional cost involved. Can you give me some really good examples of the investment? You mentioned water systems. I'm assuming some is solar. Give me the full array of what kind of investment this program will allow.
Yeah, so most commonly we see it used for heating and cooling systems, either upgrading over, 20, 30-year-old systems that have been installed and putting in new ones that are more energy efficient and operate better, or in new construction, kind of building a little bit better of a building. So definitely heating and cooling, hot water systems as well, domestic hot water systems. We see a lot of, for new construction, energy efficient windows are often used, and also other building envelope improvements. Um, to mention, the state legislature just made some updates in March to the program, to the statute that allows for stormwater infrastructure as well, and other resiliency and reliability measures. So, um, energy reliability, as far as if someone wants a backup system on their building, that's an eligible cost now for PACE. We haven't seen any of those kind of projects yet. This is all very new. And same with resiliency as far as for storms and other things like that. So, but predominantly it's HVAC, it's heating and cooling, it's hot water systems, it's industrial systems as well. We had another county project that was a packaging manufacturer, and they wanted some new equipment that was going to deal with their scrap in a more effective way and save a lot of energy over their current machinery that they had. Um, and then to your point, we did have some solar. Most recently, a dairy farm installed some solar on their property to operate their farm with solar. So it's a little bit of everything.
Okay, thanks for the answers. I just want to make sure I totally understand the program. I appreciate your time. That's all I
Yeah,
have.
I just want to mention like the loan, if the property owner sells the property, they can choose, the new buyer can choose to pay it off upon transfer. It can carry to the next owner, but it could also be paid off at that time, when the property is transferred, if that's what they choose to do.
I think the only other thing that I would add, which we may not have said, which is a huge pro of the program, is that because of the special charge mechanism, if the financing were to go into delinquency, it has priority above all of the almost any other lien against the property, including the first mortgage. So we get lender consent from any other lien holder on the property before the PACE financing goes into place, that they acknowledge the priority of the PACE. There's not a lien at the time there's not a PACE lien at the time of closing, but they acknowledge the seniority of the PACE financing, so that if a special charge lien were to be recorded against the property, that there'd be none of the other lenders would contest at that point. And that's defined by statute, as you probably know, where a special charge fits in priority in a foreclosure.
Any other questions? I have a couple. Can you divulge the plant that is looking into this place, into your loan? Who came to you?
Yeah, actually, they provided a letter of support as well. It's the local Pilgrim's Pride facility. They've used PACE financing on a property they have in another state, and they are looking to make upgrades to the facility there and wanted to access PACE financing to do that. So there should be a letter coming your way from them.
Okay. And then the other question I had was, how many counties surrounding Trempealeau County that are on PACE?
Yeah, I don't know if I share my screen, if you can see it, but kind of a small
It's like
graphic here.
Eau Claire
But
County
It's in Eau Claire.
in La Crosse.
Yeah, and a couple, I think, since even what Holly just shared, that have joined. I know Ocano and Langley have recently passed PACE ordinances as well in the northeast part of the state. But yeah, for your immediate neighbors, Eau Claire and La Crosse.
Okay. That's all the questions I had. Any other questions? I see none. Well, thank you again for stopping in and giving us this update.
yeah, sorry we can't be there in person, but if you want more information, I'm glad to, I'll send you some follow-up to Paul. He can share with you all if there's additional questions, happy to answer them. Next steps would be, if you're considering it, if you consider an ordinance, and then also signing the JPA to join the commission, at least as a member, if not assigning someone to attend the monthly meetings. But I will follow up with you all and hope to hear from you.
Yep, sounds good. Paul, do you have
Thanks
anything?
for your time.
I was just gonna say now, if the committee agrees to this and sends it to county board, the county board meeting is on the 26th of September. And we might want you to be a zoom in on that one also for questions from the rest of the board.
Yep, no problem.
But
Absolutely.
I'll be in contact with Holly, so.
Sounds good. All right, thanks again for giving us the information to help make a good decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there any more discussion on this topic before we move forward?
I guess I'd be definitely in favor of it. Anytime we can help out without, it sounds like never cost the county financially Anything we can support in the county's a plus.
Okay.
So you're making that motion?
Are you making a
I'll
motion?
make
Are you making a motion?
Okay, yeah.
To go ahead forward with this?
I just had a comment. It would appear, based on the map I just saw, the counties that aren't involved around us, we would be the prime candidate to do it because we have more commercial manufacturing than any of our surrounding counties do. So
Good point.
it would appear that there's very little liability to the county on this. Potential, yes, but very little, hopefully.
The risk is low.
Yeah. So I would think this would be a good thing to proceed further.
Okay. Are you gonna second the motion?
I will.
Okay. I have a motion on the table to go forward and come up with a ordinance on the pace.
Now, since you have a motion in a second, now it can be discussed.
Yeah.
It has to go to the board anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
but we got any further discussion?
You have any comments on your information?
No, I mean, I tried to ask as many questions as I could to understand the program, and I think there's definitely a benefit to businesses to spread their financing out over, longer period of time. I do want to make sure I comment that there is risk here. There is not zero risk to this program.
No.
The values go up. It makes it harder for people to purchase businesses. If they go under, that lien follows. Somebody else that would want to buy that business would have to pay that off in themselves. So
Yep.
that's a risk, right? So on a good, sound business that's making a good choice to get cheap financing, they're in good standings, they'll probably be around forever. That'd be fantastic. So there's the pros and cons. That's all I'm gonna comment on.
Oh, yeah.
Just wanna make sure we're all aware of that.
Yeah, and I didn't say there was no risk, I said there was a low risk.
I would think, based on what I think I heard, the application process where the now primary lender is gonna have to sign off on this to give away their first right, that is going to make it tougher on these businesses to get this, so it may not work out that well anyway.
Yeah, they didn't speak to the qualification process,
Right.
but,
No, I'm just past experience. If somebody else is in line first, it makes it harder
Holly's
to.
still on there. If you have any more questions, she's still on.
She's still on?
Yes.
That, I guess it wasn't as much a question as a comment from some of my own past experience. If there's somebody else with a guaranteed first dipping rights, that lenders are gonna look harder at it, which might be a good thing in the beginning.
it could be harder for somebody to get financing on the property in the future because there's this lien against it and they're gonna pull, all of that information and, they may not be able to get financing if they got this additional cost there. So there's the risk.
Yep.
In your packet is the resolution that Rick
Pre-wrote.
provided. On the second page, there is a blank there, yet that you'd have to fill in if you pass this.
Which blank? There's like,
Yeah, there's a lot.
Just the last bit further. Are you,
Oh, they're looking at the big blank resolution.
oh,
Fill it.
but we
gave
had,
those out, the ones I had, that one was.
we handed these out.
this one?
Yep. Look on the back side, there's, be it further resolved that blank is designated as the county representative director.
Yeah, you should have a resolution, a draft of an ordinance, and then a draft of the agreement that they would want to sign.
And
Just-
Sam handed those out just
Right.
before the,
Just, again, those are documents that, excuse me, ultimately, if this gets approved, those three documents would have to be approved in some form. Obviously, you can propose changes as is needed. But yeah, the draft ordinance, the draft agreement, and the draft resolution are all in there. And as Paul's indicating, one requirement is just to appoint one person as basically the contact that would be either on the board or doing whatever needs to be done with the program.
I don't see the draft resolution.
Look to your right.
The draft one was sent
I got
out.
this one, but not the one for the ordinance. There's gotta be a
Did
resolution.
you just pass that one out? Just, it was a two-pager that Sam just passed out.
That's the ordinance.
In your packets that we sent out to you had all the preliminary ones that Holly had sent me that were kind of the fill-in-the-blank templates and all that. Today you got the actual,
Resolution and an ordinance.
there should be an ordinance, an agreement, and the resolution.
Yeah, it might be a little confusing because they sent us templates, but we tweaked them to fit Trempealeau County specifically.
Correct.
And those are the ones that you got today, so.
So are you saying that the motion we just made included this, or we have to amend the motion to include these 2 pages?
And I apologize, what was the specific motion that was?
It was just to go ahead with the program. To
Yeah.
Yeah.
present
In
the
favor of-
resolution to county board,
Okay.
and we didn't fill in the blank.
Sure. And it would be up to this committee whether or not you feel you have enough information to move this on to the county board now for consideration, or if you want to think about it some more, revisit it again another time.
They do have a motion and a second on that, presenting it.
Anyhow, so it would be up to this committee which direction you want to proceed. You could forward them on if you chose to.
Isn't that one working?
Do you have any legal advice on it, or any comments of your own?
Are there too many? You want to turn mine off up there? Just in case there's too
Oh,
many.
there we go. Yep. I was listening upstairs too, and then I decided to come down here because I was a little bit curious after reading some of the documents and going over it. They answered the questions that I had in regards to what the county's responsibility would be if somebody doesn't pay. I was aware that there's the whole foreclosure process that we could do, or we could assign that to them if somebody did default on one of the payments. Based on the stuff that I've read, the statutes I've reviewed, and their comments today, from a legal perspective, understanding that there is some risk involved, I don't have any concerns from a legal standpoint, so.
Any more dialogue? None? All right, we'll put this to a voice vote.
One question, that, I don't know, is she still on to answer? Yeah.
Sure.
Is there a time situation in regard to this potential application? I mean, or is that why this came up now, or do we have time to think more?
I don't have a timeline from them. They are looking, they do have the project, the improvements they want to do spec'd out. So I would think that they want to, get that started in the next, I don't know, 2 to 6 months. So it's not, they didn't say we need the money November 1st or any sort of hard timeline like that. So, yeah. And I do want to just reiterate, I don't remember who made the comment, but yeah, you're right. These loans are very vetted during the underwriting by both the primary mortgage holder and also the PACE lender. So you're right. Not every business is going to be able to access it because there are some, pretty stringent underwriting requirements from the lenders themselves. And then you do have that primary mortgage lender looking at it and having to sign off on it. So. So, the timeline, I guess, is a little open, but so it's up to you all.
Answered your question? Okay.
Did Pilgrims give a specific use for what they're gonna use, solar energy or whatever? Did they give a specific use for the funds?
They didn't in their letter of support it was pretty generalized. They said updates to the facility. They don't really go into specifics. I'm sure I could ask them if you wanted some more information on that.
No, it's probably not necessary.
Any more questions or comments? Okay, this should be a voice vote. On the motions, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 4 yeas, 1 no. Motion carries.
And I have the resolution if you want to sign it. You'll still have to put a name in there if you want to designate somebody.
I was thinking David
Do we want to discuss that before we move on?
I don't know, do we need it?
Sign it as well. Yeah, this is the one to sign.
Do you need that name in before it goes to Polk County Board?
I don't think you need it by then. By the time the board acts on it, you probably should have it in there. So. Probably don't want to sign it.
Give me a chance. It's recorded that you're an open. And this is actually
That's all you need.
Okay. I mean, this is just forwarding to county board is what it is.
It could improve the tax base of the property too, so it gives us a few more dollars to the county. I would think.
No? All right. Are we still gonna look into that person, or are we just gonna move on and we'll talk about it at the full board?
We do it at full board.
Okay. All right. Since we were done with that, we'll go on to item number 7. Exit meeting for the auditors from 21 financial audit. Mhm.
Do we need to introduce you?
I can introduce myself. All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Sheann Hediger. I'm a senior manager with Baker Tilly. I oversee the financial audit part of the county's annual audit. Just want to thank you first for the opportunity to present today. I think it's been like 3 years since we've been here in person, so fun to see faces again and real people. We did do our audit fieldwork back in June. We were on site for 2 weeks, working with several of the staff. Just want to give, a good kudos to everybody that we worked with. Paul is our primary contact, but we work with all the other departments, in some format. And everybody is just very responsive, helpful. We kind of inundate people with questions, disrupt their time while we're here. So really appreciate the time that they do give us. Do you want to introduce yourself right away while we're...
I'm Amanda Mboga. I'm a manager on the single audit portion of the county's audit. We don't have that report for you today, but I'll go through the reporting and insights report for you once Sheann's done.
Okay. So I will start with the financial statements, which is the black cover with the white rectangle towards the top, if you have your books. So starting out there, page 1 is the independent auditor's report. So these 3 pages here are really the piece of the report that are ours as the auditors. This is what we are issuing over the financial statements. If you were to compare this to last year's audit report, it does look a little bit different. There was a new auditing standard that went into effect. Similar information, but just kind of reordered and expands on some of the information. So now the opinion paragraph, probably the most important piece of it, is the first thing in the letter. We once again this year have an unmodified opinion, also known, as a clean opinion, the highest one you can get. So that's always a great report. The third paragraph there discusses the healthcare center and the county farm audits, which are audited by different auditors, and then we incorporate them into this full county report. Page 2 then, as I mentioned, some of the information is expanded on. The auditor's responsibility is really the main area. Just gives a little more information about what our responsibilities were in terms of the audit. We are looking to obtain a reasonable assurance that the financial statements are, as a whole, free from material misstatement. We're not looking at every transaction. We would never have time to do that, or you having, as the county, the resources to pay us to do that. So we do, pull samples, we use materiality, and we perform a risk-based approach. The other sections here at the bottom, the required supplementary information. This is information that's required to be presented, but is not part, it supplements the basic financial statements. We do some additional analysis and some limited procedures over the required supplementary information and supplementary information, but we are not issuing an opinion on those areas. And then on page 3, the final paragraph there is the report on government auditing standards. Just to point out a small change from this year, that government auditing standards opinion is included in the back of your financial statements this year. It used to only be issued with that single audit report that Amanda mentioned, but it will now be in both going forward. All right, page 4 then, we start getting into some of the numbers. These are the government-wide financial statements, so these are the full accrual, what you typically see for a business. It's going to include those long-term assets, your capital assets, and the long-term liabilities like the debt and pension liabilities, or in this case this year, pension assets. Just a few notable numbers this year, sizable changes from last year. About a third of the way down the page is the restricted assets, the cash and investments. You can see there for the governmental activities is, $41.5 million. That's the jail bonds, those unspent proceeds at the end of 2021. And then just 2 lines below there is the net pension asset. This is the WRS pension asset for the year. That has fluctuated between being an asset and a liability several times over the years. This is the second year in a row that it is showing as an asset yet. Basically, that means the state plan is fully funded right now based on the actuarial projections, discount rates, future market performance that they're anticipating. I'd say, as I said, it hovers between being an asset and a liability, so the state is well funded in that regard. And just based on, mostly on market projections is what makes that fluctuate so much. About halfway down the page in the liability section, there's an unearned revenues this year of about $2.9 million. Those are your unspent ARPA funds. So that first half of the ARPA money that you received in 21 is just sitting there as a liability until spent, and then it will be recognized as revenue. And then in the non-current liabilities, you could see that due in more than 1 year, jumped up to about $78 million in total for 2021, and that's really the result of the $43 million jail bonds that were issued. All right, moving to the next page then, page 5. This is basically the income statement then for the government-wide activities. The expenses by function are listed on the left, and then the related revenues follow across the page. Then below there are the general revenues, including your taxes, investments, and any intergovernmental revenues that are not for a specific function. And on page 6, these are the governmental funds. So this is the funds or the activity that you basically budget for and do your budget to actual reviews throughout the year based on this method. This year there are 4 major funds. The Capital Projects Fund did become major based on the jail activity and the bonding activity in there made it qualify as a major fund. And then those non-major funds, the breakdown is back on page 67 if you wanted to see each of the individual special revenue funds. Down towards the bottom, the fund balance section. One of the most important metrics in your financials is your general fund balance. Looking mostly at that kind of available fund balance, which is made up of the committed, assigned, and unassigned categories. Committed are those that the county board has set aside for a specific purpose. Assigned as well is county board designated funds, and then the unassigned is what's available for spending otherwise. So that available fund balance at the end of 2021 was about $9.7 million, which is about 62% of your 2021 expenditures. A GFOA recommendation is to have 2 months, or about 17% in that available, available fund balance. So the county is well above that, well positioned right now. A fairly healthy fund balance in kind of these uncertain times and with rising inflation and just uncertainties with how costs will be. All right, then going ahead a couple pages to page 8. Again, this is the income statement then for those various funds. Just wanted to point out kind of budget to actual results here. There is more detailed budget to actual schedules back on page 57. But for general fund, you had budgeted a loss of just over $3.5 million. And the actual there was about $4.4 million loss. Overall expenditures and other financing uses were about $1.6 million over budget. Expenditures actually overall were under budget. General fund had almost $2 million, general government category was almost $2 million under budget. About $500,000 of that was land records, and about $613,000 was workers' comp spent under budget. What kind of pushed it over there was that transfer out. $4,950,000 was transferred to highway. That was the 2020 budget, or 2020 debt proceeds that were budgeted to be moved in 21. Moving over to human services, about a $54,000 loss compared to a budget of $90,000. The transfer back to the general fund this year was $572,000. And then there was also a transfer to the senior services nutrition program of just under $79,000. That now is fully funded at the $300,000 approved amount to fund that senior services nutrition program. Debt service nearly broke even, $2,700 increase in that fund balance. That's really what's expected of that fund, is to break even. And then capital projects, that large increase of about $41 million. And like I said, that's really those unspent bond funds sitting in cash waiting to be spent on the project. Page 10 is the enterprise funds. So again, healthcare center and county farm, those are numbers we just plug in based on the other audit reports. The highway department is the fund that we audit. I just want to point out in the net position breakdown, unrestricted net position this year is almost $266,000. Prior year, that was a deficit of about $30,000, so that is moving in the right direction, and good to see positive numbers down there. The next page then is the income statement activity, the revenues and expenses. Again, want to point out there was that transfer of debt proceeds into highway of just under 5 million. That's the last year of that kind of transfer. There was no similar debt taken out in 21 to then be transferred in 22. So highway did have a good year, $1 million increase in net position, but just without that 4.9 million, they may need to watch projects going forward. Okay. And then the last set of schedules begin on page 14. These are the fiduciary activities, custodial funds. So these are the monies that are held on behalf of others. This includes clerk of courts, register of deeds, tax collection activities, and some sheriff accounts. So these numbers don't roll up into any of your general fund or any of your other real county funds, but they're presented there for additional analysis. There's just a couple footnotes that I wanted to draw attention to. Page 28, about halfway down the page, the county has a formal minimum fund balance policy to maintain a capital fund balance of 25% of the general fund expenditures. So that balance at the end of 2021 is about 1.7 million. That's included in that unassigned general fund balance. The total unassigned general fund balance is 5.7 million, so there's plenty in there for that, maintaining that minimum capital fund balance. And then page 30, this is the cash footnote, which usually looks about the same from year to year, but this year there's some expanded disclosures on investments due to those unspent bond proceeds sitting in an investment account. So there's about 3 more pages of investment information, leveling, and dates of maturity and such, which are new this year. All right, page 39 shows the transfers between funds. As I already mentioned, but just wanted to point out that Human Services did have transfers back to the general fund and the Senior Services Fund. And in addition, Public Health this year had a return of funds of about $45,000 back to the general fund. Okay. Page 41 has some debt information. At the top there is the debt limit disclosure.
You mentioned how much was transferred from Health Department, how much was transferred from Human Services?
Human Services to general fund was about $572,000. And then an additional $79,000 to Senior Services. Yep. Okay, that debt limit. So that's based on the county's taxable property, and then 5% of that is your debt limit. So at December 31, the county's debt limit was about $133 million, and the county had outstanding debt of about $73 million. So you're at about 54% of the debt limit. There's still obviously a cushion, but I just wanted to point out that the $43 million of jail money did take a good portion of that capacity. Right, and then page 44, I discussed some of the fund balance categories there towards the beginning. This is a breakdown of all the different restrictions, assignments, commitments, and such. So many of them, the non-lapsing accounts, debt proceeds and such that take up some of the capacity of your fund balances. And the rest of it is more information, more disclosures on those net pension assets, and more detailed information of those non-major funds if you choose to look through there. But if there's any questions on that piece, I can take those now. Otherwise, turn it over to Amanda, and we'll take more questions at the end if you have.
All right, well, if you want to turn to your other report that you should have in front of you or sharing maybe. The reporting and insights from the 2021 audit. This document is largely required communications. There's not very many numbers in it. I'll go through it fairly quickly. For those of you who have heard it before, it's not a whole lot of new information. And for those of you who it might be new to, we do not have a lot of things to disclose. There are a number of things we'll go through, and a lot of them are negative disclosures, but they are things that under the auditing standards we're required to let the governing body know about. So please let me know if you have any questions or I'm going too quickly. On page 2, I guess, is the executive summary. Just introducing the report. We do have some contact information here, so if you ever did have need to get a hold of your audit team, you can use one of those contacts there, Sheehan or Kim, the partner. On page 3, we have kind of detailed explanation of our responsibilities, expanded from the audit opinion. So we are required to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, though not absolute. We also assess the risk of material misstatement, including internal control assessments. We don't give an opinion on internal controls, but we use that information to design our audit procedures. We also perform tests related to compliance and consider internal control over compliance. At the very bottom here, there's a number of bullet points that we'll go into detail later, so I'll skip those for now. Page 4, audit status. There were no significant changes to the audit plan for the year. Page 5, audit approach and results. We focused the audit on key transaction cycles, areas with significant estimates, and implementation of new accounting standards. There was one new accounting standard implemented for the year. It had a pretty minimal impact. It really only would impact your enterprise funds, so highway, healthcare center, and county farm. We have the significant risk areas listed below in the table. Now these are standard risks that all audits have to address, so it's not something specific to Trempealeau County that has triggered these. Those are the standard ones that it says in the auditing standards we have to consider for every audit. Page 6, we have a listing of the other kind of key areas of emphasis, or the areas that we focus a lot of audit testing on. And then following that, we have the internal control matters. So similar to previous years, we do have the material weakness listed for the financial statement close process, which is something that we have to disclose anytime that we, as the auditors, are also preparing the financial statements and or proposing material adjusting journal entries as part of the audit process. So that point is very common. The majority of our clients do have some version of this in their reports as well. On page 7, all right, the required communications section. Accounting policies, as I mentioned, you did have one new standard implemented for the year. We did not note any transactions entered into by the county that were controversial or where there's a lack of authoritative guidance on those. Accounting estimates, we have the key estimates listed in the table here. Again, those would be the same as last year. The net pension asset for WRS, self-insurance, workers' compensation claims, and then depreciation. And the disclosures in the financial statements are neutral, consistent, and clear. I'm going to go to page 8. We did not note any significant unusual transactions that were outside of the normal course of business for the county. No significant difficulties to report, and no disagreements with management to report. As far as the audit report itself, there have been no departures from the standard auditor's report. And we're not aware of any consultations outside of the engagement team. Uncorrected and corrected misstatements, we do have included as part of this report as an appendix, a summary, both a summary of the uncorrected misstatements, which are items that are not material and are not required to be recorded, and then a listing of the corrected misstatements, so the items that were subsequently entered into the county system after audit fieldwork was complete. Other audit or findings or issues, nothing to report in that section. On page 9. Not aware of any consultations from management's side with other accountants regarding any accounting matters. We do, again, in an appendix, have the management representation letter included, which is a letter that we request from management at the end of the audit, just confirming that there's nothing that they know of that should be different in the financials. Everything has been provided to us, all information that has been requested. We did not identify any noncompliance with laws and regulations that are reported under government auditing standards. We will be issuing, as I said, a report on the single audit yet, which is more compliance focused on your grant programs for the federal and state awards that you receive. We did not identify any known or suspected fraud during the audit. No issues with going concern. That would be the county's ability to continue on into the future, at least 12 months of operations. And as Shan mentioned, under group audits here, there are portions of your financial statements that are audited by other auditors, and it kind of gives the percentages of the magnitude of that. If we did have any concerns about the quality of work from those other auditors, we would need to disclose that here as well, and we have not identified anything to be reported. Independence, we're not aware of any relationships that would impair our independence. Okay, page 10. Also no significant findings or issues with related parties for the county. And then under other matters, again, as Jan mentioned, the required supplementary information and supplementary information, it goes through kind of our procedures for those. The non-attest services that we perform are listed here as well. This would be things outside of strictly the audit work. And then on page 11, we do have a link here for our own internal resources for governing bodies. If you did have any interest in looking up, kind of the regulatory and trending changes and opportunities, we do have articles that are specifically geared towards governing bodies. All right, following that, now we're going to get into some of the appendices here. So on page 12 starts the management representation letter. And I won't go through anything in there, but it is there for your reference. If you can get past that on page 22. You have some information on some of the upcoming accounting standards. 22. There, yeah, the page numbers aren't on the rep letter. Yes, keep going. Yeah, I know. There are quite a few that will be effective for 22. The first 4 listed on here, as well as GASB statement number 97. Most of these I would not expect to have a significant impact on the county at all. The one possible exception to that could be leases. For governments as a whole, that's kind of a big one, but it depends on how much leasing or rental activity the county has. So that's something we'll be looking at for 2022. There's some more information on the lease standard and a couple of the other bigger standards as well. We'll go to page 25. 25 is a summary of the uncorrected misstatements, which again are things that are not required to be reported as they're not material. This particular item here had to do with some construction in progress for the Justice Center So that'll be picked up in future years, but it was not included for 21. Following that, we have the listing of adjustments, so the reclassifying entries that start with the Rs. Those are report-only entries, so those would not have been given to the county to post. The listing after that for the corrected misstatement would be the ones that were posted. And following that, if you can get to page 35, which is very near the end. Page 35, this last section is on two-way audit communications. So it goes through our scope and timing for the audit. On page 36, there are some very specific questions on here that are really geared toward the governing body. And if you ever did have anything to, communicate to us under any of these points, I just do want to encourage you to get a hold of us. We can use that information as part of our planning process. As Sheehan said, we don't look at everything. So if there are concerns or anything that, anyone is aware of that they want to make sure that we're aware of, please do get a hold of us. All right, and that is the end of the report. So that's what I had for prepared comments, but certainly can take questions on either report.
Any questions? I do have a question. So why aren't you guys doing the audit at the healthcare center as well? Since they are.
They're separate operations. They've chosen to have other auditors.
Okay.
I think it's they have a separate board, right? So their board would have.
Kind of. Board members sit on it from here, but it's
Yeah, and Whitley has done their audit for years too. It's
okay. That's it for me. Well, thank you. Any questions from anyone else?
Again, appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much,
you.
ladies.
Thank
Those of you that got reports from me, I need them back. Now I can give you one. Yeah, said I wasn't gonna do it till the committee. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Item number 8, county sales tax update. Paul.
We're at where? Oh,
Number 8, county sales tax.
okay, our sales tax collection is $249,882.66. Thank you. Which is way ahead of last year and the year before. So that was a big boost. That we're like 48,000 ahead of last year at this point.
Year to date.
Year to date. Okay, yep. We always got to keep that in mind. So I always put down at the bottom how much we have to collect yet to make our budget, which is $981,000 over 6 months, which is barely $150,000 a month. So we're going to make our budget. I'm going to say we're going to make our budget.
Yeah, you said that now we're not.
I jinxed it. I knew it. No. Yep.
Paul, have you received any kind of information, rumors or whatever it might be as to why? Is it strictly inflation?
Gotta be.
It probably, yeah, because this would be money that was collected in June. Collected in June, sent to the state in July, and given to us in August.
Right.
So we always got to think 2 months back.
It's interesting to note that in May, it was significantly off from prior year. Not sure why that was. Was that when
That would have been from
coming out of
March.
COVID back then, or what? I don't know.
Well, I hate to say COVID was kind of a, I shouldn't say blessing for our sales, because there was a lot of online sales tax coming in. So, I mean, a lot of people bought a lot of stuff.
All right.
And at one point, I did contact the Department of Revenue because I wanted a breakdown of what made up the money, and the report they gave me, I couldn't make heads or tails out of it. It just, we basically have to speculate. A lot of cars were sold, maybe, stuff like that. Tourism, probably, but you couldn't tell from the report that they gave. It's very, I'd like to have Linda Mossman come here, because she, being a business owner in town here, she likes to watch that stuff, and I don't know if she'd even be able to tell.
I think a little bit of that has to do with, it was beginning of summer. We're looking back at May. We're starting to get in summer, graduation's happening, so there's going to be more pickup. The weather was pretty nice in May too, so everyone was getting out and about, so. But, all right. Any further discussion? None? All right. General fund update.
Okay, as the auditors mentioned to us, our unassigned fund balance is at $5.6 million. This is the new updated one now. And then they also mentioned that we have on record, County Board has designated at 25% of the upcoming year's expenses, which is the 1.6 million, leaving us with $3.9 million as a general fund. And then those things listed are what County Board has designated for expenses, the last one being in August, the security overtime. So we've used up 353,000 of that, bringing us down to the 3.6 million where we are now.
Okay. Any other discussions on that? Seeing none. Item number 10, quarterly updates. County Veterans Office, Steve.
If you got an
That's
extra.
fine.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Steve Young, County Veteran Service Officer. I will do my best to keep this short and sweet. Everyone's time is precious. The number one item on my list here is the latest key legislation from the Department of Veterans Affairs was called the PACT Act. The full name is the Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson Honoring Our Promise to Address Comprehensive Toxics Act. That's why they've shortened it, because that's a long one. What it does essentially is it added quite a few more presumptive conditions for folks who deployed overseas and were exposed to anything from airborne toxins to Agent Orange to anything else that was found essentially and identified as causing issues medically. So they've added 20 more presumptive conditions for burn pits and they call it particulate matter exposure, which can, the most common three are rhinitis, sinusitis, and asthma. Now they've added on, I want to say it's 9 rare cancers, along with a bunch of other nasty conditions, unfortunately. They added on 3 more presumptives for Agent Orange to include, the big one was hypertension. That's been going on for years. They've been fighting us on that, and that's finally going through. They also added 5 more locations for Agent Orange exposure for folks who were deployed during Vietnam that were not previously considered. So that opened the doors for a lot of veterans, for potentially millions of veterans to get into the healthcare system and to receive benefits from the VA. So there's more to come on that. The VA hasn't really briefed us yet on how to roll it out or how to handle all of it. They don't quite know themselves, I don't think, but they said go ahead and apply now and get the ball rolling. So we're doing that. We've already got plenty of phone calls and we've already submitted some claims on that. I did throw in a frequently asked questions sheet. It's the 3rd page. So you could read through that at your leisure, and it's got a little more detail into what the PACT Act has in it. Moving on. Well, any questions on the PACT Act from anyone? It's a pretty detailed thing, but I'd be glad to answer what I can. As far as office space goes, nothing much has changed. We did add a veterans library. We joined a group called Operation Paperback, where volunteers shipped us books. And so we started a lending library. They can keep them as well. We don't charge for any of that, so it's there. It's gotten positive reviews so far. An update on telehealth, which we discussed in the past. After keeping an eye on how we're doing with transportation and appointment times and how booked out the VA is, it doesn't seem like there's a need for us to set up a hub that we discussed in the past. For those not familiar, we talked about getting an iPad from the VA and then setting up a spot in the courthouse for veterans to come here and do video appointments. And at this time, it just doesn't seem like it's worth it. Veterans are either doing it with iPads at their house or they're getting to their appointments. So the need just doesn't seem to be there. So we'll reassess it again in the future, and if it seems to be fruitful, we'll reevaluate. Office training, Joe's going to become nationally accredited this November with the National Association of Accounting Veteran Service Officers. So that'll be big, so he'll be able to serve veterans anywhere in the country, and that'll also open up other accreditations for him. I'll be attending the fall conference in October in Wisconsin Rapids. We do 2 of those a year. I typically attend fall. Joe will go to spring, so we can both receive continuing education credits and maintain our accreditations. Recent events, we just had the Congressional Gold Medal for World War II service for Reynolds Tomter. Probably everybody knows Reynolds.
Yep.
And they said that was the greatest turnout they've had ever in that particular category. They said the most they'd ever had at an event before was 100 people, including participants, and we had over 250. They even sent down the attaché from Norway, from DC, and he spoke, and he gave a great speech. It's all on YouTube from the county, and Reynolds is a great guy. He's still on top of things. It's amazing to talk to him. What's that? I know, it's ridiculous, and he's still so sharp, it's uncanny. I walked up, and I was in uniform for the event, and he's like, "Oh, my VA guy!" Like, even with the uniform on, he hadn't seen me in a year. He still knew exactly who I was. Asked how my 2 kids were doing. He's on top of things. Still sharp
as a tack.
We also attended Ashley for the Arts. That was good. We had probably 20 or 25 contacts with veterans or family members. We did end up with a few coming in to see us after that. We partnered up with the American Legion again this year. We've done that 2 years in a row. We'll share a booth space with them. And next year we're going to do it a little bit better because our sign wasn't quite good enough. People couldn't really tell us apart from American Legion. So we learned, but we'll do better next year. We've already ordered a few different things to help with the outreach, so that'll be better. Then following that, we went to Park Beats in Osseo. That's put on by a local veteran, Scott Schultz. And that was, the Veterans Night is specifically for veterans in the arts to sell their merchandise, to show off their art, the bands, that kind of thing was all. And it was great. We had a better time there than at Ashley for the Arts, honestly, and we talked to probably more people. And we had a lot of follow-up from that. I forgot to mention on here that Joe did set up at Beef and Dairy Days here in town as well, and he talked to quite a few folks, and we got a couple of appointments out of that. Upcoming events, we're going to attend the Planning for the Future conference the ADRC is putting on in October. They invited us into that, so we'll definitely have one of us there. Next month, we'll be starting our Toys for Tots campaign, which will be the first year we've done it. We're just waiting on further direction from them, but we're approved to do it, so spread the word. If you know anyone that wants to make donations, we'll be accepting those once we get the box or whatever it is they send us. Cool. And then the last thing I have on here is we'll also be doing the Christmas donations for the veterans at Family Circle again, as we do every year. I don't know if we're going to do gift cards again yet, or if we're going to do physical gifts like we've done in the past. Due to COVID, we pivoted to the gift cards. So I'll talk to them and see what they feel is appropriate. I included a printout of just my current general ledger at the moment, just so you could see how my budget's been going. We're looking fine. As of end of August, we had 39% remaining on our budget, so we should be just fine with that. And then I did attach the flyer for the ADRC event, so you guys could spread the word too if you feel the need. And other than that, I can answer any questions you have, but that's all I had.
None? You're doing great work.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Steve. All right, quarterly update from Corporal Counsel, Rick.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Just a couple of things. I think most of you know that I've had the Assistant Corp Counsel has started now, started last week of June, I think it is. And still, obviously, there's a period of time of getting up to speed and getting trained and all that kind of stuff. But that's moving forward. Hoping around the October 1st timeframe that he'll start doing the court work and moving forward to that. I'll still be doing the child support court work, but he would be doing the other stuff. So again, just one of those things where it's moving along and trying to involve him in as many things so we can get to know as many people around the county as possible so they can feel comfortable dealing with him as well. I attended the opioid summit a couple of weeks ago. I think a couple of you had heard about that as well. That was in Stevens Point. They had a number of different speakers from different areas, treatment providers, Department of Corrections, recovering addicts that spoke throughout the day. It was very informative. I actually was going to give a somewhat of a brief presentation, but I was hoping to get more information on the securitization so I could do them both at the same time. As this committee knows, we showed interest in it, and so we're waiting for the numbers to come back from that. So my intent would be is to present both the securitization as well as some of the information discussed at the summit, hopefully next month, that would be on the agenda so we can get some updates on that as well. I think, well, some of you may know we have received our first payment on that, so those monies are starting to come in. Question, of course, remains is how that's going to be spent, and that can be a discussion that this committee can have again when it's formally on the agenda. But the summit was very informative. They plan on having one every about 3-ish months, just to kind of see where things are at. The key takeaway from that one was collaboration, different stakeholders working together to utilize the money as best as possible. And then I'm attending a virtual webinar regarding ARPA funds. That's coming up in 2 weeks, I think it is. It came across my desk as being put on by the Wisconsin Bar Association, which is essentially the oversight organization for Wisconsin attorneys. They're going to be doing an ARPA funds presentation. Again, it's a half a day. I thought it would be beneficial to go to get some information. One of the main topics is how to use those funds and what are the proper uses. And so I just thought with some of the conversations that the county has had, it might be beneficial. So I am going to be attending that. Again, it's a virtual one, so I'll just be doing it from here. Those are a couple of the things I just kind of wanted to update on. Other than that, just kind of business as usual within the office. So. Well, I didn't say anything unusual. I said business as usual. Yes, there's been a lot of records requests and preservation notices coming into Paul's office regarding election stuff from about 2019 on? 2020 on. And we think a lot of it came in because the deadline for maintaining those records came last Saturday, I think it was. So there's a lot of that going on right now. We're still kind of sifting through that at the moment. So if any questions, whoops. Can certainly answer.
Can you give us a little brief on the opioid, what we could use that money for?
Yep, and I know you and I had previously talked, and I have that kind of a summary, so to speak, that I have that ready for you, so I'll get that to you as well. There's some main areas, and again, it's about a 15-page document that outlines the uses for it, but essentially it's treatment purposes, prevention purposes, and educational purposes. Those are the broad categories, and I'm kind of being simplistic with it, but that's kind of the general rule of thumb. I know there's been a couple of departments that have expressed some interest. I know I'm talking with the sheriff right now in regards to whether it would fit a particular need that they've been looking at as well. So I'm just kind of informally looking at it with them to see if that might be beneficial. Not for all of it, but for just for portions of it. But really addressing the education, treatment, and prevention aspects of it, increasing, is it Narcan, whatever it is, increasing that availability and training to the community as well. There's a number of opportunities to partner with other organizations who may have received some as well to maximize those funds. So, yeah, what I basically had our office created was we took that 15-page document and broke it down into a number of categories and then subcategories with page number references. So that way, as you might be looking at uses for it, you can reference those to see if they kind of fit within those parameters. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Any other questions for Rick?
Great,
None?
thank you.
Well, thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 11, resolution separating human services unit supervisor and deputy director. Deb.
So you have a resolution. Did you get the project initiation form as well? If not, I have copies for you.
I don't seem to have one.
Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't get one.
Okay.
It was in the mail, you think? I went
It was-
through
It was?
It was supposed to have been mailed out, but here's for John. It's not stapled, and then this one's for you.
No, that wasn't mailed.
How convenient. So currently, we got approval from the Human Services Board and Personnel Bargaining in 2020 or 2021 to have a part-time deputy director. There was actually talk at that time, would you need a full-time? And we said, well, let's start with part-time and figure out where this goes. And so since that time, we've just seen really a demonstrated need for a full, so that when it was part-time, one of the unit supervisors then did unit supervision part of the time, and about a third of their time was deputy director. And Erica's been the one who's been doing that. But we really, what we really need is some additional support in the high level of the supervision of our department. As you can see in the resolution, we've grown our budget in the last 10 years by 87%. Only a small portion of that came from levy. We've increased our staff by 60% in that same time period, and yet we've remained with one director and not a deputy director. And so the deputy director position, as we've been using it, has really been very instrumental in working with staff in terms of finding, writing grants. That's been a big piece of it. Erica's written grants, about $135,000 grant that we're getting on an annual basis. She's also involved in the $110,000 TAD grant that we get, so that position's been very involved in bringing in revenues that way. The other way that it really impacts the department financially is working with staff in terms of finding alternative options to placements for children and adults. So as you know, we serve kids and adults, children that are abused and neglected, children that have disabilities, adults with mental health issues, and seniors that maybe need some protective placements. And so Erica's been done phenomenal work with staff in terms of finding ways that we can reduce placements. And for example, in our children and families unit, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but our numbers of referrals for kids for child abuse and neglect referrals have gone up. Our number of placements over the same time period have gone down. Very unusual. They usually run parallel. And the reason the placements have come down is because with the work that Erica and her team have done is trying to find other services that are funded outside the county to be able to serve these kids and their families in the community, which makes the most sense. Anybody that's struggling, to take them out of where they live, put them in an institution or facility somewhere away from their family, their friends, their life, and then at some point they're stabilized or cured or whatever, and then they're plunked back where they're at. That isn't helpful. So how do we help people live and stay stable in their own community with their own families? And that has made a big, big difference in our budget. In fact, in our 2023 budget proposal that you'll be seeing later this month, we are coming in with 2.92% levy decrease. I know 1% was requested, but we've nearly tripled that. And we were able to do that in large part because of the kind of work that Erica's doing with staff in terms of those placements. So that's the request, is that we have a full-time deputy director and a full-time behavioral health services supervisor. Kind of splitting it in two has been difficult. And so that's why we're bringing forward. Funding for this year would be funded because we had a children and family supervisor leave earlier this year. And so we have some unspent money from that. And then in future years, it'd be funded by being able to draw down additional funds as well as the reduction in expenses. I don't know if you have any questions.
So what's the scope of this role? How many people is it responsible
So I didn't bring our organizational chart, but we have, currently we have 7 unit supervisors, and then I'm the director. And in our department total, we have, including a couple contracted staff, about 54 positions. And so this position would be supervising some program specialist, as well as providing direction and support to the unit supervisors who still report to me in the org chart. So it's just additional support for the director.
So they will have one direct report?
I'd still be the supervisor, yes.
No, but of the new role, how many direct reports will that person have?
The way it's currently configured, 1. Just because there's staff report to all the unit supervisors, and the unit supervisors report to me. And so this deputy director would be an assistant, like Rick is an assistant.
I got you, I'm just trying to understand
Yep.
where it fits in that whole org.
It's a good question.
The one question, the one position that hasn't been filled, that you're saying will help support?
It has been filled. The person left in May, and we filled it early, like this week.
Okay, so, but the funds that you hadn't spent up until this week.
We'll
or-
pay
or
for
will-
this year.
For this year, so then you're going to include that role in next year's budget, which you said is paid for.
So in next year's budget, that money will go to that unit supervisor. The way we're funding this in future years, and I have that in the
In the back.
document I just handed out to you, which I don't have in front of me. Yes. On this page here, if you don't mind, Doc.
Yep.
This page here, going forward, the ways that we're going to fund it, and it's at the bottom. What we're able to do is because our overhead costs can draw down some federal dollars, so RIA and the Resource Center, DCF and DHS are ways that we can capture and draw down additional federal dollars just by having this position as part of our overall administrative structure. We're able to claim what's called AMSO, Administration, Management, Support Operations costs. And so a portion of their funding, or portion of the funding of this position will come from that. The other portion will come from up above, and you will see that there's, well, where did I have it? I did this a little while ago, so I can't remember what I did here. You can see there's a reduction in professional services and children and families, and so those would be the expenses that we would have reduced to help pay for that, as well as the additional revenues we bring in.
So Deb, is this creating basically 2 positions and you need to
There's
fill-
currently 1 position.
Currently 1, but then are you splitting this into 2?
Yes,
So you're gonna need another person
Yes.
too? And that's gonna be covered,
with the funding that I have in.
so with all the funding, both positions can be covered,
Without levy,
Without
without additional
any-
levy.
okay? That's including insurance and everything?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just wanted to verify that.
Just for curiosity, is this kind of a common thing with the surrounding counties too? They have a deputy?
I know that La Crosse County has it, Eau Claire County has it, I believe Pierce County has it. Pepin is too small, Buffalo's too small. Jackson is toyed with it, but I don't think they have one at this time. Monroe used to have one, but they cut that a few years ago. Clark County doesn't have it, but they have the mental health system separate from social services, so they have 2 different directors. So they don't have it, but they're kind of configured very differently than we are. But I know like Jefferson County has it, Oneida County does. Going through my head, Green Lake County. These are just counties that I work with on some committees, so those are just ones off the top of my head. I didn't do a comparison for you. I could do that if you'd like.
No, I can see where it's helpful, because you can't be here every day yourself, and it's nice to have someone who can step in.
Well, it's really difficult to continue to, as the one director, when you add 60% more staff, your funding, and you work hard to increase funding by almost 100%, you just need some help to be able to manage all that and you know, one of the biggest areas that we've brought in money is in the CCS program, and that's a certified program, and so you have to have so much documentation on every service that's delivered. You have to have case notes. You have to make sure the people delivering it have certain credentials. You have to make sure they do this regular training. You have to have background checks. There's a lot of work to be able, it's nice to get that extra $1 million, but it's a lot of work to be able to do that. And it's also, again, that is one of the methods, one of the fund sources that we use to help pay for keeping kids and adults stable in the community versus placing them in expensive placements. And we can get, if you place them, it's all levy dollars. If you provide these services, it's all MA dollars, which is not levy dollars.
Okay.
Has this gone through all the other committees already?
I have signatures from,
You have the original one?
I do.
I know.
I have signatures from Human Services and Personnel Bargaining, so you're the last committee before it would go to County Board. Oh, I gotta fill in the date from Personnel Bargaining.
Okay.
I think Paul sent that out.
That was mailed out, that I know.
Yeah.
Here's a copy of it, John, if you'd like it.
One on your desk, for sure.
I don't know. I'm not even gonna. Deb, are you basically suggesting that this Trempealeau County is growing in a way that we're gonna have, that you need that support compared to like Jackson, Buffalo, Eau Claire, and
Yeah, since I've been here, we've increased staff far more than any other county around. When I go to my state meetings with other human services directors, they're impressed at how many staff we've brought on. And again, we've increased our staff by 60%. We've increased our budget by 87% with less than 20% of that growth coming from levy. And so since I've been here, we've been very aggressive in finding other funds that we can provide services to people in our county. So we are unique that way.
so we're growing. We're growing to help.
Yes.
That's-
Yeah.
Okay.
When I came, for example, we didn't even have a behavioral health unit. We had Deanne Anderson. And now we have 7 people in that unit. And again, it's things like that we're doing, that we're able to reduce a great number of costs for placing people, and we can serve people in the community where they live, and not just save county dollars, but the human cost of taking a person who's having a hard time, yanking them away from their family. It's just really hard to do. And so I think we've seriously grown in that area. We've also seriously grown in terms of services to kids with physical, mental, emotional, cognitive disabilities in our county. We were serving about 35 kids, and now we're serving over 100.
Okay.
And really, the schools are loving it because they're getting all that extra support, so that's been very helpful with the schools.
Good. So, all right. Guess any more discussion on it?
Your fiscal impact sheet on the back, that's just for the remainder.
On the resolution is just for 2022.
Yeah, for
The
remainder
one
of
in
this
the project initiation is for 2023 going forward,
Okay,
or 2022 through whatever year's on there.
okay.
Somebody asked why I didn't project past whatever the last year is on there. I said there were no more columns.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Hey, Deb, do you foresee that there would be any levy in 2024 needed because of this growth, or moving forward? I mean, is it all going to be paid for by other funds?
Well, I can tell you that when the budget proposal, we came in with 2020 and 2021 and 2022, and now for 2023, we actually asked for less levy. Not as much as we're cutting this year. But we wouldn't be asking for less levy in the 2023 budget if we felt like we're going to be shorting ourselves for future years. Based on our best projections, we feel that this position can pay for itself. And it will help support future growth with other non-levy funds. I mean, our goal is really to focus on how can we best serve people and have the smallest impact on levy.
Yeah, that's kind of what I like to hear that, because having a position at that level should allow you to have the leadership needs for quite a while that we could
Oh, for
really
sure.
leverage.
Yep.
So.
So, any further discussion? Not? I guess I entertain a motion for the resolution.
The only thing I'll add is that this request actually started with our leadership team, the unit supervisors. It was not my idea to come up with this, but the unit supervisors said we would really like that extra support. And so, for example, allowing myself in my position to be able to be involved in state groups. There was a funding cut from the state 2 years ago, and it's a long story and you don't have a lot of time, but we would have ended up losing $40,000 a year. And because of the work I've done at state groups, the relationship I've had with different individuals at the state level, we were able to get that $40,000 that last year and this year and going forward. So it's things like that being able to be in this, being able to have that capacity, be able to build those relationships and be involved in state groups, I think puts our department in a very positive position as well. And I think that's what's contributed to a lot of the growth that we've had.
So the motion is to what?
To accept the resolution that is on the table.
I'm gonna put my motion forward. I think it's a good idea.
Do you make the motion?
The motion,
Motion to accept the resolution by Mr. Orsh. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Larson. Paul, since this does deal with finances, does this have to be roll, or can this be voice?
I think you can just, because you're actually just making a motion to send it to
Okay.
the county board.
All right.
That really has no impact on budget, so it's,
Nope, no, I just want to clarify.
County board, it'll be a roll call vote.
So this will be a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None. Motion carried.
No, this is the
No,
original.
one that Deb had.
This is the original.
This looked good.
Yeah, I did too,
No,
didn't
no,
it?
but the signature's on.
All right.
I'll wait till that comes around.
That's the whole thing.
Any further
No, but
discussion?
just the one page, because I got the rest of
None?
it, because I don't want to lose all the pages.
Okay, we're gonna go to item number 12. Resolution carryover maintenance project funds for 2023 budget. Jeremy?
Good morning. What I'm asking for is pretty straightforward and simple as far as I can tell. I got two items, two capital expense projects that were gonna happen this year that I just wanna carry over to next year. One is for a lift that I was purchasing that's gonna be used in the new facility. Reason I need to carry that over is I have nowhere to put it right now. So the room that I had, all that stuff, all my storage has been taken away this year, so I just wanna purchase it next year when I have the ability to put it somewhere. And then the windows that I was gonna have replaced this year, it's twofold reasons why. One, the cost of the windows right now is higher than what it was when I got the estimate the year before, and I'm anticipating those to go down. And then two, because one of the windows is in an area where the buildings are gonna connect. They're not on the exact wall, but it may end up still getting, something may happen to it at that point. So I just wanna carry that over into next year. So I'm not asking for any money. All I'm asking for is the money that I currently have gets shifted into next year.
I would move for that approval.
Yeah, second.
So I got a motion on the table by Mr. Ozen to carry over the the designated money, and seconded by Mr. Seisha. Now this one has to be, because it's levy dollars, right? That would have to be voice.
They can just go to full county board.
Oh, it's gonna go to full
Just-
county
we
anyway.
can just-
Yeah, so we'll do a voice vote. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? None, motion carries. There you go.
Thank you all.
You're welcome. John, there's the resolution for that. All right. Item 13. County interpreter service discussion.
Well, Riley, but then I talked to her about coming down for it.
Did you talk to Ms. Jadraki on this as well?
She
Or-
thought she was gonna bring both.
Okay.
down. So, there's no phone down
I don't have her
Why
number.
don't you just go to the ARPA
We'll just come back to it if she comes
there. You're gonna
down.
text her? Okay, good.
So,
ARPA fund.
so we'll go on to item number 14 to ARPA funds.
Okay,
Discussion and
on
actions.
your desk. Oops.
I forgot my pen today.
David asked about, doing kind of an accounting of the ARPA money. So I have a little printout. It almost looks like your general fund, because I use the same template. But this is the ARPA funds where it starts, 1st of January 21. We had 0, then on June 22nd of 21, we got the first half. July 14th of this 22, we got the second half, so that was the total that we have received in place. Lori has it invested. We did do 3 allocations. One was the 6,000 for the veteran service walkers and wheelchairs. And then the county board action in July with the Justice Center contingency and Justice Center furniture, fixtures, equipment, amounting to $2.3 million. So technically, the balance of that money is just about 3.4 million. And then the people that have come forward with requests total $12 million. And so the adjusted balance, if all requests are granted, is a minus $9.3 million. So you figure that one out.
All right.
So that was that part anyway. I don't think I have anything else to add to it because you have done nothing else. There hasn't been any more allocations or, but we should start talking about it. I mean, I have another report coming up. I want to say October. Or no, maybe not until next year. Because all I've reported to the feds is the 6,000 for veterans. So on the next one will be that action that was in July, will be added to it as allocated, not spent.
Yep. Any other discussion on it?
Is there any formal, there's been requests come in from the departments. Is there any requirement for us to get back to them on these, or?
They all did their presentations and
Right, so.
we're in a holding pattern is all I can say.
And I think the last discussion we had was, we need to see what the overspend is gonna be on the new building before we can really decide what's there.
Mm-hmm.
We have until 2024 to
Right.
allocate it.
Yep.
And 2026 to spend it. The project will be done way before that, so.
I would certainly be in favor of staying in the holding pattern.
Okay. So we're just gonna leave her as she lies right now. All right.
Krista's here.
Krista's here. Was Jadraki coming with you?
I don't believe so.
Okay. But we'll go on ahead and talk about the interpreter service. So come sit with us. I brought this to the table. We were going through the audit. Me, John Oz, and David Orsh were going through the audit, and we were seeing crazy amount of money being spent on interpreters. One came from, we were paying mileage, you know, what was it? Like,
It was like 3-hour drive plus mileage.
Plus mileage.
It was one that stuck out. It was like, what in the world are we doing? So I said, let's have some discussion in terms of.
It was $70 an hour plus mileage.
yeah,
For the
it,
drive, you know.
yeah, it was a little, like, just a little too far out there. So we were trying to figure out how can we keep it within house and try to save the county some money on that. If we could send somebody to school for the interpreter, or if we have somebody that can do it.
Yeah, well, the discussion was, hey, how much money have we spent, you know, kind of year to date, and what is that in an annualized number? We might be spending enough on interpretive where we could just hire somebody to do it ourselves.
Yep.
Now, there's probably a lot of complexities to that, you know, you can't be in more than one place at one time, all that sort of thing, but there is a significant amount of dollars being spent on interpretation, so that's why we thought we'd bring it up.
Paul?
At that audit meeting that you guys had, I did run that report, and it was for 2021, the interpreter service account was $38,000. But then I did mention that there are some departments that actually have on-staff interpreters, people that can interpret it, I guess is what it is.
Deb?
Yeah, so I know Rick and Krista have done a lot of work on this. I've just been here a longer time and had more discussions on this, so I can give you more history than they can. But again, I started here almost 10 years ago, and we've been discussing it pretty regular since then. Trumpealeau County is very unique in that we have 20 to 25% of our kids born in our county are to mothers, there's a state thing that they measure, to Hispanic mothers. That is the highest percentage of any county in the state and has been for the last 15 years. It's higher than the percentage in Milwaukee or Kenosha or anywhere. So we have a significant need for interpretation in our county, period. In our department, let me also say that we've also looked at, in conversations with the health department, the sheriff's office, other departments, could we hire an interpreter? And I know Paul's office oftentimes asks that question because when someone comes down to his office and does not speak English, he doesn't, one doesn't just miraculously show up, so having one on staff would be nice. The challenge has been, we go out in the field and we visit these families. And so we would be out in the field, we'd be taking the interpreter, well, then they're not available for Paul. Or the health department would have them at a WIC clinic, they're not available to Paul. The sheriff's office has need for it, but the skill set, I wouldn't, you can't just send somebody along with the sheriff's office. And even for our work, you have to kind of understand the programs that we have. And so our interpreters, we do pay quite a bit of mileage because they drive all over the county to people's homes. And we also pay some mileage. Some of them come from La Crosse or other distances. Their quality, we have one interpreter, for example, that's a certified interpreter with Gunderson Lutheran. And on Thursdays, she's off. And so she knows a lot of these families, especially with kids that have health and medical problems. She knows a lot of these families. And so she's been a great interpreter for us, but we do have to pay some mileage for her, not just to visit families, but even to just come here. And Rick, you can talk about, but he just led a committee last year and a half ago. We had been paying interpreters $30 an hour for a long period of time, which seems like a lot, but you consider like they don't get any benefits. There's no Social Security, there's no retirement, no nothing. And so in 2021, we upped that to, I think it was, or was it 2022? I lose track.
Actually, I think it was longer ago. I think we started the conversations and COVID hit, so then we kind of put it on the back burner.
But we
and so
increased the
there,
rate to
we
40.
decreased the rate, and yeah, I'd have to go back and refresh my memory, but it was approved by the county board in resolution as to what the, and let me back up a little bit. The conversation regarding the interpreter services started because we didn't have a uniform way of making sure that they had at least a minimum basis of qualification. We just had a list that if someone called and said, I want to be on your list, they were put on the list, and we weren't verifying whether or not they had the qualifications necessary to properly interpret. So we went through the process again once we really had gotten most of it completed, and then COVID hit, and then it kind of got put on the back burner. I have assigned Evan, the Assistant Corp Counsel in my office, to kind of make sure that everything was finalized and everything's good to go on that. But yeah, the hourly rate was increased because of the fact that we're now requiring minimum qualifications, that we thought it would be appropriate, and the board approved that. I will say, and I know you mentioned Judge Radke, so I wasn't sure if you were talking about the court stuff as well, too.
Yep.
What I will say is that what the county does for our interpretation of services is completely different than what the court does. There's much more stringent qualifications for the court than there is for what we utilize. So for theirs, and I don't know where their budget for the services comes from, if it's county or if it's state, I don't know that. But I do know that the court is always responsible for their providing an interpreter, and again, they have to be, they don't use our list because they don't have the qualifies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
court
they
certified,
do.
yep.
So anyway, so I don't know where their pot of money comes from for those. It does, okay, I wasn't sure on that. So that one, yeah, that would be good to have the judging that conversation, just because I don't know what leeway they have. So I know, for example, I do the child support cases, and I know we do, for the most part, we do one Tuesday a month where the afternoon is nothing but interpreter cases. And typically, we have the individual present in person, occasionally by video. And there's only 2 that I'm aware of that we utilize in Trempealeau County that are certified enough for the court purposes. And then occasionally, we do have the 51s where we need one as well. But anyway, so that's kind of some more of the background as well, too, where that's all coming from.
I think what brought this up from audit was, this one, I think, came from Green Bay, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Green Bay and,
It was, I believe it was a court-required one, and that was like probably whoever they could get at the time, which
And it was like
I think that's where we have to decide.
$70 an hour driving time plus mileage plus
Yeah.
time in court.
I mean, if the court's needs are so little, really, that you're not gonna be able to support a role, okay, but that coupled with maybe other needs of the county, okay, you hire somebody who has the right qualifications for the court, and their main thing is to support the court, but then the rest of their time can be wherever. Maybe that was the thought, is maybe we could reduce our cost. I'm not sure that we can, actually. I mean, I think the run rate was 43,000?
38,000,
That's-
when I ran that report,
That was last year, you said.
for 21.
So 22, we're on a run rate of like 43,000.
Oh, that was right, yep.
Right,
Because I
so
ran it, we did.
still, it's not, doesn't seem like it's to the level of, we need to think about hiring someone. But I think it was an appropriate time to bring it up, because we're looking at these bills going, oh my goodness, this is ridiculous for, one particular incident, so.
And it is good conversation, because I know recently there was some discussion between the DA's office and the clerk of court's office, because they need an interpreter on occasion as well. And I know Mike Diaz from the DA's office would help on occasion, but he's not always available. So I know the clerk of court also has a need. I don't know what individual departments' needs are, but it might be something that might be worth taking a look at to see what kind of needs the county has for somebody. The other issue, for lack of a better word, is, law enforcement uses it, for example, even over the third shift, and whether this person would be expected to be on call for those situations too. Again, those are all conversations that can be had as to whether a staff person would be.
Yeah, they
would be
never
appropriate.
leave.
Right,
So then
exactly.
that led to another discussion of, okay, Chris, we brought you in, and well, we have people who are employees that do know how to speak. They may not necessarily be qualified. Maybe we could get them qualified in for a stipend or some additional something when they perform those services in addition to their job. Maybe we can say, here's another way of reducing that cost. I don't know how many
Yeah,
people
we have 3 in our department in economic support, and they have a full-time caseload, so for them to break away to do that, I mean, if it's a true emergency, occasionally, but oftentimes they're working remote. And so it's difficult for us to be able to do that. But the other part was, they're funded in such a way that if they're spending time doing something outside that funding, we'd have to find a way to pay for them. And so
Right.
that's the other challenge that we have.
Which brings up another question. Is there some sort of either state or federal funds for interpretive services that, we can get in terms of a grant to help support a program like that? I don't know. Look into. I mean, I think to your point, we are unique in our county in a good way, that there's people who need the support of the government, to survive and function. But if we can't talk with them, how do we help them? And it could make things worse if we can't talk to them, so.
Yep.
Something to consider.
And what's worked in our office now, too, the people that come in that don't speak English have been bringing their own interpreter with.
That's the other side of this. The amount of people that can interpret.
Well, and
If
we've
you go to
even
the
had-
Arcadia, most of the Hispanic
Yeah.
younger group, they could interpret for us. So the possibility of
we've-
getting those folks,
Right, we've
they're
had couples-
available if they qualify, I guess.
We've had couples come in to apply for a marriage license, and actually they bring their kid with, who speaks fluent English. I mean, it's just,
Yep.
so, but we pretty much are getting by. There are some occasions, we've asked Maria, and we've got to do very carefully, you know, so, and I think we've asked the lady up in the health department, because they have one or two people that are fluent Spanish also.
I think the other thing, besides just interpretation, that we need to consider, and Krista knows civil rights stuff better than I do, but these individuals, like, it's nice that they bring their kids in, but it's really inappropriate for their kids to be answering some of these questions on these marriage licenses. That's why we don't, I mean, I'm sure there's kids in the homes that we go to that could interpret, but it's totally inappropriate for them to be discussing these matters. There's certification for court stuff, and then there's interpretation certification for medical stuff, which is like what we do and what the health department does. So there's even different kinds of that. The other thing that I'll just say is, I think the other thing this county really needs, because it's really inconsistent throughout the building, is, and I think it can become a civil rights issue, is how we interact with the individuals that don't speak English. Because I've heard some staff being few staff, not many, but some staff being kind of rude with people that don't speak Spanish. And I think we, as a county, should have kind of an overarching philosophy on how we serve individuals and how do we meet their civil rights. And again, having someone that can interpret for them starts to infringe or starts to impact their civil rights as well.
A couple other considerations as well too, when an interpreter is needed, particularly outside normal hours or maybe even during regular, having, if you're considering staff, whether the person needs to be there in person or whether it can be done with the phone, or it kind of depends on what the topic is. More sensitive information, of course, might require them in person. I know in a pinch, I know the sheriff's office does use Language Line or whatever it's called.
Or SWITS.
Okay.
We do that occasionally too.
Yep. So, I mean, there are some options available. I don't know if that costs anything. I have no idea
Yeah.
what
Yes,
that
it
does.
does.
It's
Okay.
pricey.
Is it? Okay.
It's
So
pricey,
just, okay.
yes.
So in
That's
some
of
form
the
or
bills
fashion.
that they saw.
Sure,
at
okay.
that audit meeting.
But anyhow, those are just some additional considerations I know that have been talked about over time.
I think at the very least, we just need to have heightened awareness to the cost on that particular line item. And, if it gets to be $200,000 a year, we need to do something different.
Yep.
Or don't hold me to that number, but at some point, we have to make a decision of, are we gonna keep spending at that rate, or are we gonna try to do something different to keep it down? So that was really what we started the whole conversation with.
And weigh it with the scheduling. That's the
Yeah.
big thing, the scheduling. Because we used to have a floating secretary years back, and it was under my control, I guess you'd have to say, and that scheduling was just unbelievable, because I'd have 3 departments need them for the same time, and, I could only give them to one, and stuff like that. So that's why we don't have a floating secretary anymore.
Just out of curiosity, the case that brought it up, was it a Spanish situation, or was it another language?
It was Spanish.
It was, because I recall last time I was on board, we had an issue like this. I don't remember, when we went through audit, Paul.
Our old list, I'm kind of glad that Rick's office has kind of taken over the interpreter
When we
thing anyway,
researched it, we
but-
found it was somebody from the cities that spoke some dialect of Vietnamese, and
Oh,
that's
we've
what we.
had that, yeah. But on our list, we even had people that spoke German and Hungarian and Russian and
When you
lots
get into
different.
that, it's kind of pay the going rate and deal with it, I get. But the Hispanic one, I would think, might be some room for improvement, maybe someplace.
Sounds like to me that we need to have more interpreters in the county to help.
What? Nobody came forward on that, or Polish, no.
So I think this was a really good discussion to heighten our awareness of what the county needs in the departments, as well as out there in the world as well in our county.
I know for years in different committees, we've always kind of like, especially health and human services,
Yeah, we've hired, again, economic support workers, so we've hired 3. And again, we're part of that 8-county consortium, so they serve Spanish-speaking people from Monroe, Clark, Jackson, all the 8 surrounding counties. We don't have any Spanish-speaking staff in children and families or in child disability services or adult disability services. Most of our need for Spanish is for families with children, but that's not 100% the case. I also think Veterans Office has some Spanish-speaking customers as well. For some reason, I was thinking there was one that we shared, but I could be mistaken.
Good. But it's something that I think we need to maybe start looking into and try to see what we can do about this.
Because Rick, you did that a couple years ago with that committee. You did a lot of work with that.
Correct. We got policies in place, forms, and so forth. It's just a matter of, again, I don't know how much we actually finalized when it came to the forms, and that's where I asked Evan to revive that and get that moving forward again.
But we also talked at that about would it make sense to hire somebody?
Sure.
And that became very clear that there was such diverse need at such diverse hours with diverse types of certifications. Hiring one person was not going to work. And so, and that was a couple years ago. We could certainly continue to look at that. But Rick did a lot of work on that.
And I can speak a little bit to that. I was involved just a smidge on that interpreter work group, being the HR generalist, and there, in my documents that I do have, there is a posting for an independent contractor as a Trempealeau County interpreter. So our office does keep the list. But again, it was just a draft. Nothing was ever really fully implemented because, again, COVID hit. So I think it's something that we'll just have to kind of bring back and take a look at and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I think so. Any further discussion on this? Oh, absolutely. All right, seeing none on this discussion, we will move forward to item 15, FEMA update.
I think, did I last month tell you that we had gotten the 90,000? I was thinking in the minutes of what it said. We've received $90,000 with $150,000 pending. We had to send in a little more information on the full body scanners and the x-ray machines that are in place. Did I say that same thing last month?
Charge was received for 90,000, fully on remaining until depreciation amounts from Gulf Sheriff's Department.
Yep, I guess I did that already. So that was from last month anyway. Now, this month, Integrity has submitted on our behalf another request for funds from FEMA. That's in about the 240,000, give or take. I guess I didn't bring that with. So that is now in submitted, so we're in the waiting pattern for that, to see how that turns out. In the meantime, just this last week, I received Integrity Group bills, I'd have to say. There actually were 3 independent ones, individual ones, I should say, that total just about $87,000 that we owe Integrity for doing all this work for us. And what happens is we have to pay them. They then submit that to FEMA, and FEMA will reimburse us for that. They have to show that the bill has been paid. So it's in for audit today, this afternoon. And so we're going to be paying it out of just miscellaneous expense account. And when the money comes back, because the administration part, they say will be 100% funded. So we shouldn't have any problem there. It's just that we're on the hook for just about $87,000 until that money from FEMA comes, and federal government is slow.
So we
have to pay the bill, show that it's been paid. Oops, you were on. And then Integrity will submit that on our behalf for reimbursement.
whether or not we get the funds approved from FEMA or not?
This part we will, but the
Okay.
others, yeah, we're still in holding pattern on those. It's just like,
It seems like an awful lot. It's all we're gonna get is the 90,000 out of FEMA, and then we send another bill for close to the 90,000.
I hope
And we'll
not.
get that 100, even if we get 100% of it back, it seems like such a waste.
It's a lot of monkeying around.
Yeah. Well, FEMA, I've had, disaster dealings with them before through different organizations, and they're always slow paying.
That's why I think I mentioned this at one of the other meetings you had, was that these things that they're denying now, we took money out of the general fund. So that depleted, I'm not gonna say depleted, but reduced our general fund. And we were anticipating getting that money back to put it back in the general fund. If we don't get it,
Mm-hmm.
I know, it's kind of a,
But you have to pay it before you can submit it.
we have to show a paid receipt. And then
But
they
they've
can
already
submit
gave
it.
us 90,000, right?
Pardon?
They already gave us 90,000.
FEMA gave us 90,000.
So we're kind of at a wash at this point,
Well, if we, yeah.
if you
Not
think
really.
about it. But
We spent a lot, we spent
We
a
spent
ton
like
of money.
$600,000.
$600 and some $1,000 we spent.
Projects that we submitted.
With
They
the
whittled it
understanding
down from that
these would be
600
covered
to
by FEMA.
240-some thousand.
And they
Okay.
disallowed
And so we
240.
should be getting the other 150, the 90 we got, and the rest of the 150-some thousand. We should be getting, because we showed what the value of those body scanners and x-ray machines were. So that, we should be getting that 150,000. So that first submission that was 600 knocked down to 240, we should get the 240. Well, Integrity has now taken the 300 and some thousand that we didn't get accepted, resubmitting that, plus we had a bunch of other things that we added to it. So that brought it up to another, about 240,000 again,
Okay.
that we should be getting. I always have to say should.
A lot of this money we spent, though, we were told that FEMA would cover this, and that's the reason we.
Went this route.
Mhm.
Okay.
And Integrity is doing this for a lot of people across the United States. So, I
Right.
mean, they must be confident that money will be coming, but I mean, when FEMA knocks things out and say, no, this isn't covered, then that's what.
Okay.
They're probably waiting to see how much money they have left, and then they'll change the rules to send more out if they have money left.
I mean,
Well, that was with the CARES, one of the bills that Integrity sent was helping us with the CARES money. And we did get our full allotment of 488,000 out of CARES. Plus, there were other entities that didn't claim enough, so CARES gave us another $51,000 as a bonus from what we were actually allocated. So we got 500 and some thousand dollars there.
should this be approved before it goes to audit? Approved by this committee before it goes to, I mean, this is a bill that's gonna get paid, it's an invoice.
I feel, yes, it should. Technically, it's not on unless you talk about the FEMA funds update, if that's broad enough to.
You and I being on audit, it just kind of bugs me that we gotta sign
You gotta sign these bills.
approve a bill that
For this.
I never really knew it was coming. I thought it was coming directly out of FEMA. I didn't know we were gonna have to pay it up front, so. So I'd make a motion that we approve it here, so I don't feel so bad in audit.
My question is, can we do that without having it on the agenda to approve?
I don't know if FEMA funds update is broad enough. Rick left.
Rick left.
I can ask him, but I mean, if you do the action and it isn't broad enough.
That's the only question I
then
have, but.
You'll just void your action, but.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to pay Integrity Group.
86,900.
No more than $87,000.
It's just short of 87,000, yeah.
Okay. Motion by John Hazen, seconded by Doc Sasha. being money, this will be roll vault. So, John Hazen,
Yes.
Richard Seisha,
Yes, I'm sorry.
David Orsh,
Yes.
David Larson, yes, and Riley Foltz is a yes. 5 yeses, no nays. It passes. All right. Any other discussion on it? None? Okay.
Now comes the fun part.
Moving on, item 16, 2023 budget discussion, set the dates for the budget hearing.
Okay. I've got the budgets over there that we're gonna give to you to take home. Don't forget to bring them back. Also, the finance ones, the financial and, the reports that, the auditors talked, they're coming to our September county board to present also, so please try to remember to bring those.
I don't know if we need somebody to comment. John and I have been at it for a few years, but it takes, at least 6 days. We kind of, in the past, have just did, like get here at 8 in the morning and 8:30 in the morning and try to be done by noon. I don't know if you want to do it that way or if we want to try to schedule full days.
You had other ideas.
Well, my problem with that, Richard, is my employment is starting to get a little testy with me about all this.
Yeah.
So I gotta start doing afternoons meetings, otherwise I won't have a job.
You need afternoon meeting.
I need afternoon meetings, cause I miss out on 6 hours of work in the morning. I can at least put in 8, cause I can go in a little early, so.
I don't have a problem with that, but I'm just one voice. And we'd have to be here during business hours because we're
How
meeting
soon
with
can you get here?
I can be here by 1 o'clock, cause if I work till noon, I can at least get quite a
That
few
would
hours.
leave us
And that'll put us
basically
at
just
4.
3.5 hours a day. Because that, basically you can't expect departments to come in after hours unless we pay them overtime or whatever. Well, most of the people who come in.
Most of them are salary anyway, right? So.
I would think, most of them are exempt employees anyway, wouldn't they be?
No, everybody's over.
I'm gonna
Well, couldn't we give them comp, I mean, if, say we went to 5, 6 o'clock or something, could we give them comp time for the,
Oh, yeah, they'll have to account for their own time, that's.
And that's fine, cause this is a big item.
yeah.
Yeah, we have.
This is gonna take hours, you're not looking at doing this in 2 hours, you're looking at
No.
days. But,
This is about, I'm gonna say 6 to 8 days
Yeah.
yeah,
it takes.
6 would be the
And that's,
maximum, right?
Minimum would be 6.
and that's if everything goes well.
And that's figuring what, 3.5 hour days, 3.5 to 4 hour days?
At least.
At least at 4. I think we used to go, we'd start like 8 and usually 1 o'clock before we got out of here. Except Chuck Wallach he had to leave at like 11, so the
Right.
last couple hours he wasn't.
Right.
Yeah, because he had to teach.
Yeah.
Mr. Orsh, you have anything?
Okay, let's start with the end date in mind. When do we have to have it done?
I have to have it to the paper because it has to be published. Oh, that's the next thing we got to talk about in this budget. I have to have it to the paper, published by the 14th of October.
Yeah, so usually it's
In the past, we've always met that last week in September
in the first
and the
week.
first week in October.
And then if there's a callback,
I can't
we'd
go
go
in.
an extra
Those
week.
weeks are unreal.
Unless
Don't
you
shake
want to
your head
start.
no, you signed up.
No. Unless you want to start earlier. I mean, I'd love it if you'd start. But we've got the WCA conference in there, so some people will be gone for that.
When is that?
That is the
19th?
Next week.
19th and
Well, county board is the 26th. I don't know.
county board is the
Bring my
26th.
phone down.
So,
Here's a calendar here too, does that help you?
yeah, it'd be nice if we could start next week even.
I'm gonna be gone basically next week.
That's no excuse.
Well,
You
Oh.
signed up for it? No.
No, I also signed up for this. I'm a veteran, and that's our thing, 13, 14, 15, 16. But anyway, the week of the 26th.
So that's as soon as you can.
That is county board that first day,
County
so
board
you
that
probably don't
night.
want to do it that one.
So we probably
So
want to
then
do the
27th, now
27th,
you're-
28th,
now you're-
29th, 30th. So we could get 4 days in there. And usually there's not a lot going on the end of the
And
month.
you'll have your October regular meeting, will more than likely be
On
the
the
3rd of
3rd.
October.
Yes.
And so then
So you
four
can't-
to.
We can do that,
back
you
to
just
that,
have
4 to
to,
7,
you just stack
that
it.
would just give me
'Cause
4
if I do
days
the
to get it to the
afternoon,
paper.
But you got admin or on the 4th or 5th of October, right?
Yeah,
So then you'd be off all day, just in the morning?
I'll probably be calling in, so I can at least still work.
We just put the phone on speaker, crawl under.
I do.
Really?
I put my earbud in and I sit and listen.
Oh.
I put my phone on mute and, because the one time I didn't, yeah, everyone could hear me talking to myself.
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty funny. Adi still picks on me about
In
it.
the past, for what it's worth, I think we've had days when people weren't able to come.
Oh, there's always-
It isn't like,
Yeah, because I have to get everybody scheduled
right.
also for those.
Yes, he's
So I have
got
to have
a,
the
So
set
I'll
days
aid
and
if you happen
times
to
that you're
miss
gonna do
two, I
it.
guess it wouldn't be the end of
so
the
they
world,
get-
right? That kind of where I'm.
I've already had departments say, I can't do it on this day, I can't do it on that day.
Or we've had
So
them
I would
scheduled and they
prefer
switch.
this day if it's that, if that's one of the days.
is that gonna work for you, Dave?
The first week of October, I am out.
Oh, you are?
I
Oh,
cannot
that's-
go at all that week. I could do afternoons or late afternoons on the week of the 26th, you know? This is horrible. This is like the worst case scenario for me, so.
And you're gone next week, did you say?
Yeah. Tuesday,
What about the
Wednesday,
night?
So are we
Tuesday.
saying we
Tuesday.
almost have to grab 27, 28, 29, and 30?
For sure, then. It'd be nice if those were the last days.
Can you guys do between the 19th and the 23rd?
Well, the 19th and 20th is
Okay,
WCA
so we
conference.
start
You only have 21, 22,
21,
23.
I say we at least do if we can do the afternoon, the 21, 22, 23, then I can.
23 and then start,
Because Riley, didn't you say you gotta do afternoons too?
I gotta do afternoons.
And starting at,
1.
I know you just said late afternoons.
It's-
but
What,
it's
you
what's,
said-
what's the latest?
What's
To
the
me-
earliest in the afternoon? Let's go that way.
Yeah.
The earliest in
The
the
late-
afternoon that
Not
you
the latest, the
could.
earliest.
I can go earlier on the 21st, 2nd, and 3rd, so, I mean,
If you started at 1
That's as
on
soon-
those days?
That's as soon as Riley can make it.
Because by the time I drive from Eau Claire here,
and again,
I can
I'm
be
not
here by
opposed
1.
to paying some overtime or giving comp time and go into the evenings, 5 or 6 o'clock.
I don't
like you
think
guys
our
said, this is the
department
most
heads would.
important part of what we do. We should expect people to make themselves available for that. So
At least
even if we
work with
started
us.
at 2 and went till 6 or 7, you know, that's half a
That's
day.
usually about, you know, if you
All right.
said we start at, I think we used to start at 9.
9,
And we
right.
got done about 1 or 2,
No
so,
later than 1, I guess, but.
yeah.
and it's.
Not that we couldn't.
It's,
There are
it's,
some days
it's a
we're
short
earlier.
blimp of the year, so we're just trying to accommodate for all the members as well, you know.
So maybe 2 to 6 or whatever, something like that.
2 to 6 on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd.
We can't, the 20th doesn't work?
That's
Well-
WCA.
They're gonna be
Oh,
gone.
okay.
They're gonna be gone.
People won't be back yet.
Okay.
That's the issue with that.
Tuesdays and Wednesdays,
I mean,
I don't have a thing going on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I can get
Is-
here Tuesday and
Is
Wednesday.
Saturday out?
Anytime.
Can we not do Saturday?
Well, then you'll be all
Well,
comp
then
time for
everybody will be
overtime.
getting overtime. And
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't matter to me, that would,
I cannot be here on Saturdays, but that'd be the day
What
I'll
about
have to miss.
Sundays?
But that's the day you miss, and
I can't be here on Sundays either. I'm working Saturday and Sunday.
oh,
Okay, if we
Work-
got
work.
3 days down, I can pack as much as possible in those 3 days, but then that's
Well,
not gonna be
and
enough
then the-
time. We're gonna
and
have
then
to
the
have,
yeah, I think you gotta
then the
schedule that
October-
the last week of October too. I mean,
so
September.
then 27, 28, 29, and 30 would be callbacks. If we have, I haven't even got to talking about this
So-
yet.
Could we,
So 21,
Good.
22, and 23 are in, right?
Starting at 2 to 6.
Oh, starting at 2.
2. I thought we were gonna do 1. Did
Well,
you wanna start at
I can't start that early, but
2?
Well, 2 is fine with me.
Well, start at 1 and he come in.
I'll come in as soon as I can.
David, do you wanna start at 2? We can start at 2.
You,
That's fine with me.
basically, a lot of times, the first 15, 20 minutes is just overview
The first-
of what
the
we did
first
the
ones
day
that come
before
in
and where we're at
usually
and all
don't
this.
let
So
you
you,
do it
it's,
because we don't
if you
know.
missed the first half hour, it wouldn't be the big,
But when I
Are
say.
you saying 1:30 then?
yeah.
Do you want to say 1 and then he'll get here as soon as he
Yeah,
can?
because a lot of times, like, the second day, it's gonna be what we did the first day and where we're at, and each.
Where we left off.
Each day, we talk about a little bit what happened the day before and what we gotta do, and so,
We won't schedule anybody until 2, you're saying, or 1:30.
Oh,
Well,
well,
I think
I
you could
usually
get-
schedule him about
15 minutes.
15 minutes after the start of the meeting.
Yeah.
And then 15 minutes, we talk over what we did the day before. Because then I give you, well, let's talk about that right now before we go to any more dates. This sheet right here is what all the budgets have been presented, okay? And I just want to kind of throw out at you that, and I'm just going to go to the very first page, and I'm going to go to the very first thing. If you look at the columns, that is the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth column, which says 22 adopted tax levy. That was what we levied last year, okay? And your directive was to have a 1% decrease in levy. So you'll look at that column, and I'm gonna do county board because I cut you guys quite a bit there, but we had 104,000 in 22. In 23, you have 101,000. So I did cut $3,000 there. So that's what, those two columns are the columns that you're gonna be looking at, okay? For each department, everything is on there all the way through. I'm gonna have you go to the very last page now. Staying with those same two columns, the adopted levy in 22 was 15,674,832.03. See that? Okay, now go to the last column. This is what everybody's turned in so far this year. We are over 3 million over what we can be on the levy limit.
Is that even a little more than normal? I guess it is.
This one I thought was a little bit less.
It's a little bit
Because
less.
it was almost 5 million,
Was it
I think,
5
that
last
you
year?
guys
Okay.
had to work
Yeah.
to cut down last year.
Oh, hell, we won't have any problem.
Tell me.
But anyway,
Oops.
Okay, and then I also have to say that in this, we have not, I've been talking with Krista quite a bit on this, we have not gotten the health insurance increase yet.
Right.
So that's something else that'll get added onto that 18 million that
It
we'll
is
have
gonna
to-
be an increase, there's no question.
There, yeah, I've talked to some other counties, and they say it's been modest, it's been like 6 to 7%
really?
increase
Oh,
in
that's-
health insurance. It's gonna be interesting, because that's through the Wisconsin retirement system is where our health insurance comes from. And if they can do that, that'd be, but that's gonna be a horrendous number too. I didn't think you guys were gonna even be done by noon today, so. So that's, that's something, if you have time to look through this and look at those two columns for each department. And there are some departments that work pretty hard on getting that down. But most, just salary increases because of the step grade or the grid. That put them over, right, if you see mine, that's exactly what happened.
Does
We
this
did as
show-
much cutting as we could, but the
does
salaries,
this show the cost of living increase too? Is that in on it?
that's under contingency, that's $290,000. That would be on page 4, I think,
But anyway.
page 4.
getting back to these books too.
No, page
it's-
3.
It's
I'm
good
sorry,
to
page
go
3.
line by line, each department go line by line and check them over. Because that's basically what we do at a deal, but if you can go through this prior to all our meetings, it saves a lot of time.
That's the things that are in your big 3-ring binder.
All
That is
this
the line item
All this is
budgeting.
into here, but this is where you can get your cuts out of this big thick.
Because that'll
book.
show your actual from the year before, what your budget was for this year, and what they're asking for next year.
Back to,
So,
I'm pushing it a little bit, I've got another appointment.
sure.
No, that's
Can I
fine.
get those dates? You're gonna do those for sure then?
The 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 1 to 6.
Okay.
And we do it in the Trempealeau room because then I can lock the door and you don't have to take all your extra papers home with you.
Once we get set.
Once you get settled in, yeah.
We'll be, we'll be in here.
No, we'll be
No.
in the Trempealeau room.
Trempealeau room.
Because I can lock that
Oh.
room up.
How about-
This one, it's hard to lock because of the TV studio.
How about the day of the county board, do we want to
Do-
do that?
You can,
We should.
huh?
We just do it that afternoon.
So the 26th?
We just schedule it as,
Well, then it could be a 1 to 6, but then you start 6:30 at county board.
I'm not interested in that one. We're in a long county board meeting. That'll be a double for me anyway. I'm old.
That one isn't so much, I think we've only gotten about 4 resolutions.
Oh, we
But
do?
we will have the auditor
Right.
presentation.
Which
Uh,
shouldn't take any longer.
If we have the
than today.
PACE thing, because now we got that on the agenda, that lady might take a little bit of time again to explain all
I
that to
don't
the
see
rest
where
of
it
them.
should be that long a meeting, but.
The
even
county
if we
board?
Even if we just started at 2, get a couple of them out of the way or whatever.
yeah, we don't have to do a whole lot.
You know, or maybe we just
two.
go to, just something.
So you have time to at least go and get something to eat before you come back to county board?
Yeah, I don't need to.
So what are we saying?
So, the
Well, he's not gonna be here in
26th?
October at all, so I'd like to get as much done as before.
Yeah, you said, yeah, that's right, you did say that.
I can't go in October. There's
What
no
can
way.
we do on the
And I
27th?
like
Can we
the
schedule
idea of getting done in
27th and
September. That
28th?
gives me more time to get the stuff to the paper.
Everything else would be 1 to 6 at least.
What was the 26th, was a,
County board, what time we gonna come in that day then?
1 o'clock, do the 1 o'clock, and
1
So
to-
1, we're gonna do everything at 1 o'clock.
if that works for you, that's.
That works for me.
Yeah.
1 o'clock.
Are you talking about the 27, 28, and 29, and 30 also?
Yeah,
1 o'clocks?
yeah.
I don't think we'll need the 30th, but you wanna put it down?
I put a question mark by that
Do
one.
what I
but-
can.
Same.
Those are the worst 2 weeks of my year, so I'll do what I
It's the
can. I'll do what I
worst.
can. That's all I like. to do.
Budget is the worst time of year for everybody.
Is it,
End of
would
the
that
month.
help you to skip a day so you're in the office? No?
No, we gotta get it done in September.
Okay.
I like that. That gives me a little more time to make sure I don't have any mistakes in there.
Yep.
And, because every day I do a calculation again of the levy limit freeze, limit that we can
I
we can
think we're
raise.
far enough along. I'm gonna sneak away. You just gotta, the third's
So,
gonna,
21, 22, 23, 26, you said 1 to, leave them all at 1 to 6?
Well, yeah, except
Well,
on that board,
and
night,
if-
make it
if it
5:30,
turns out-
1 to 5:30 or something.
Yeah, make that one shorter a little.
1 to 5:30.
Well, I just won't plan as many
then
people.
can I go up to your
Yep.
place and take a nap?
Sure.
Okay,
Sam will be excited.
Got a nice couch or an easy chair for me?
that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Paul's got
7. Oh,
enough
we gotta
papers
do it
laying
at
in
7.
there.
I think we can
just
do
lay
it
a
at
pile
7.
of papers.
So we're gonna do it through the
Okay.
29th?
Okay.
30th.
The
technically.
30th will be
Is the
just in
contingency.
case.
Yep.
We could make
30th
that a
will be
call.
just in case. yeah.
We could have a call back day on the 30th.
Well, I'd like that on the 29th.
Well, that'd be nice too. It would
I'll,
be nice to be all done by the end of September. That would be nice. That'd be a first.
That helped me a lot.
Mr. Larson, do you have any objections? You've been pretty quiet over there.
I know.
Whatever the wife says, right? Okay.
It wouldn't be a problem if we could do it from, 4 till whatever. That wouldn't be,
I would still only make it probably 4 to 9.
If,
It's fine, man, but nobody wants to work outside of this.
So when I went back home, the next time, then I actually got break my
There you go.
Then I fit.
But then you finish drinking.
Right.
Okay.
But October 3rd will be your next
are we,
meeting. Right?
are we done with the?
I think we're done with number 16 at this point.
At 16, we've concluded. All right. Item 17, set the date. It'll be
October 3rd.
October 3rd,
8:30.
8:30. Does that work for you?
And that actually, I can put on that agenda too about the budget, just in case we have to do something during our regular meeting.
Yep. Does that work for you? David, you're probably not gonna be here. I'll just
are you
dismiss you.
gone that week,
I
whole week?
cannot, that whole week, forget it, I'm out of town,
Oh.
Oh.
I'm busy all day long that, I mean, just.
No, you're fine. Yep,
So,
nope, that works.
so the 3rd is the regular finance meeting.
Yes.
I could do an evening, right? I could do call in if we did it, but
No, if you're busy, don't worry about it. It'll be,
The other 4 will just have to carry the burden.
yep.
you'll have a quorum.
We'll still have a quorum. So, all right. With that being
And in
said,
between each of these meetings that we have, our office will be getting everything updated, so we're ready for the next meeting, so you know.
Yeah, Sam does all that.
What?
easy.
Yep.
October
October 3rd, Doc, is your regular,
October 3rd is at 8:30 is our next
is your
meeting
regular meeting for this committee.
for the committee
The
meeting.
regular monthly meeting is
It's the
October
3rd.
3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we said we're probably, if we haven't finished the budget, we'll do some that day to finish it.
Or even gonna keep that open for just in case also, you're saying? No, we'll have.
Well, it might be a callback or something too there.
We'll see.
We could do that during our
Okay.
regular meeting.
Can David make that meeting? Can you?
No,
That
he will
week
not
is-
make that meeting.
What did I
but-
miss?
Program.
Huh?
The rural something program, rural partner network.
Oh, nuts. I didn't even bring that with.
Well, you
It's
got-
not,
Wasn't on the
agenda,
It's not on
so,
the agenda.
so we
Yeah.
can't talk about it, but with
Yeah.
that being said, we have completed the items on the agenda. And I will adjourn us at 8, or 11:08.